The Institute of Primate Research started in 1958 by the Leakey family. The aim was to study monkey behavior so that it can give insight into behavior of early man.
The Institute of Primate Research is a good place where you can do your research and also you can advance your career.
Work within the department is crucial in the sense that we work towards trying to improve human health.
Reproductive health and biology department, I can say, is the soul and the heart of the institute.
Our biodiversity work in Chulu, which had very interesting findings, has led to gazettement of Chulu as one of the water towers in the country.
Those who are finished giving birth, they can permanently close the fallopian tubes and stop getting children.
Since NCDs are arising from the way we pursue life, it is better to be healthy than to manage an NCD.
Humans do not live in isolation. We live together with the environment and also the animals. And the best to do that is to basically ensure that the environment we are living in and the animals are healthy.
Keswick is a first-of-its-kind facility dedicated to snakebite research and intervention in sub-Saharan Africa.
My name is Dr. Hastings Ozwara. I'm currently the Director, Institute of Primate Research, position I've been holding for the last 6 years. My background is a PhD in medicine from Leiden University Medical Center in the Netherlands, specializing in malaria, where I was looking at how to use malaria parasite DNA to develop vaccines and drugs. Functions of the Institute have expanded to include biomedical research and laboratory animal science. IPR has several objectives. The most important objective being to conduct biomedical research so that through this we can develop drugs, vaccines, and medical devices for improved human health. We also advance research in conservation and biodiversity, whereby we want to conserve, for example, the primates that we use and also reduce human-wildlife conflicts. We also undertake One Health research, which is understanding zoonosis or emerging diseases that occur between wildlife, livestock, and animals. We also serve as an animal holding, animal welfare facility where we run ethics in animal research. We also have to mobilize resources for research and also the running of the institution. And also we do take care of our staff so that we have a dynamic human resource that can deliver on what we would want to achieve, and then also undertake corporate communications that can enable us communicate to our stakeholders on our activities.
My name is Dr. Atunga Nyachio. I'm currently serving as the Chief of Research at the Institute of Primate Research. My area of research is reproductive health and biology. I also work on virology. My basic training is biochemistry and molecular biology. That has helped me do all the research that I'm doing. As an office of the Chief of Research, I supervise all the research programs and give direction at the Institute. Currently, we have various programs that address the research priorities of the nation. One of the programs is tropical infectious diseases that deals with diseases such as malaria, schistosomiasis, leishmaniasis, among others.
The Department of Tropical Infectious Diseases has a diverse array of research programs. Within the department, we focus mainly on parasitic diseases. There's malaria, there's schistosomiasis, as I said before. there's leishmania and trypanosomiasis. We also have virology, and we look at various viruses that infect both humans and animal models. So overall, the department, we basically are looking at developing animal models as diseases to test a number of drugs, vaccines, and before we go to animal models, we'll be able to evaluate the different components in vitro first, and then we move to a lower animal model such as the mice before we move on to non-human primates. In terms of achievements, we, as a department, we have been able to understand in greater detail how these parasites are able to infect, in our case, animals, but as they infect animals and maybe more so humans, it gives us a better understanding on how the disease progresses within an in vivo model. So once we have that background, we can then go ahead and be able to work with other people within Kenya and internationally to then get drugs, vaccines, or diagnostic tools. So overall, we've been able to test all these different platforms. If I give an example for the malaria, we have currently we're evaluating novel molecules that have been isolated from plants. So we're hoping to be able to design and come up with alternative malaria drugs. In the case of diagnosis for malaria, we have a number of students who have been working on actually designing new diagnostic platforms. So hopefully that will be something we look forward as a team we'll be able to make available. For the in the schistosomiasis, we are testing, we've been able to evaluate some vaccines. So one of the challenges with schisto, when people are infected with this particular pathogen, in some cases, when you have a co-infection with schisto and either viruses or parasites, the schisto is able to actually protect. So in the case of malaria, so we've been able to test vaccines in a schistosomiasis animal model, and in understanding the immunology and how it's able to protect. One of the key things we are advocating for is treatment with praziquantel prior to introduction of vaccines. The department in the last 5 years has published over 50 peer-reviewed journals. So for us, that's a great achievement. So overall, work in the department aims to impact the society in a number of ways. If I'm to start with, for instance, the students that we bring into the department, we're basically advocating for science as a career. So we are role models to young upcoming scientists, encourage them to basically take science. Secondly, for the diagnostic tools that we evaluate, so a good example is the one I mentioned with schistosomiasis. So if this is successful, we'll be able to roll out the diagnostic tool in the field, and this can then be used to basically diagnose the presence of schistosomiasis in water bodies. Work within the department is crucial in the sense that we work towards trying to improve human health, and the animal models that we use are critical in understanding a lot of the life cycle of the various parasites or viruses that we're working with. We hope that with the research we're doing, we can actually work to overall improve human health.
We also have a program of reproductive biology where I also do my research. In this program, we address diseases of the reproductive system. We also do microbicides and contraceptives. And we deal with issues of pregnancy. We start pregnancy. And specifically on my research area is in vitro fertilization and endometriosis.
Reproductive Health and Biology Department, I can say, is the soul and the heart of the institute. I say this because reproductive health is a fundamental human right. And if you look at the programs that we run at the institute, they are very key to reproductive health. One of the programs that is undertaken at the department is assisted reproduction, whereby if a couple is not able to get a child through the normal process, then they'll have to undergo what is known as in vitro fertilization. Another important program that is undertaken at the department is contraceptive and microbicide research. In low and middle income countries, for example in Kenya, women in this region are not able to, most of them are not able to control the number of children that they would want to have. So we are trying to carry out a research whereby women can have products whereby they can use as contraceptives without the consent of the male partner. And we also undertake research on microbicides, especially in this current era of HIV and other sexually transmitted diseases. So that microbicides, when they are developed, women can use them also to protect themselves against sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV. Another important program that is being undertaken here is endometriosis research, which is a very big problem in women. And unfortunately, most women are not usually aware whether they have that problem or not. And as a result of that, it causes infertility. We also have diseases and disorders of the reproductive system, including cancer, among others, that the institution or the Department of Reproductive Health is undertaking research on. At the department, we also house molecular lab, but the bigger part of the molecular lab is currently being housed at the COVID Center. The last 5 years, this department have had over 100 publications, and that is an area where the department for a very long time has been doing very well in. In addition, the department has received several awards. In the last 5 years, we have had over 20 awards to the various scientists in the department, either awards for the good job they have done or award to attend scientific conferences locally and internationally.
And also we have a program of conservation that deals with the conservation of the primates that we use for the research. Ideally, we look at the aspect of sustainable utilization of the non-human primates, and we ethically utilize them. So as we utilize them for biomedical research, we also ensure that the numbers are within the range that is acceptable.
As the head of the Department of Conservation Biology, we run different programs within IPR. These departments include field projects in Chulu Hills, which is more on biodiversity monitoring. We also have a field site in Tana River, where we are actually monitoring the endangered species in the Tana River, which are the Tana River red colobus and the Tana River mangabe, which are actually the two world most endangered primates in the world. Besides the two programs, we also have a program in Matthews Ranch, where we are actually monitoring the rare Dibrassus monkey and actually the endangered Passpose black and white colobus monkey. The Passpose black and white colobus monkey is endangered in Matthews Ranch in Samburu, and the Dibrassus monkey population in Matthews Ranch is the only population we have in the eastern part of the Great Rift Valley. We also have programs in Laikipia, where we are looking at the effects of climate change on land use changes and also zoonotic infections. And we've been trying to look at how climate change has impacted on vegetation and how that has affected mammal distribution, both large mammals and small mammals, and how that is related to infectious diseases, particularly the zoonotic ones. Then we have another program here in Karula, which is on translocation of the black and white colobus monkey. That is the Colobus gueresa kikuyoensis, which is actually a project which was aimed at promoting conflict resolution for the animal-wildlife conflict, and also trying to promote ecotourism within the green spaces in the city of Nairobi. This program is actually led by Peter Fundi, and it's one of the current models in the country whereby we are using translocation as a tool to conserve the black and white colobus or to conserve primates while trying to promote the local livelihoods and the well-being of the people, particularly those people living around the cities. The translocation activities is one of the few recent breakthroughs in trying to resolve the human-wildlife conflicts, especially where the peoples are in conflict with primates and particularly the farmers. The second actually major breakthrough is our persistent monitoring of the endangered primates in the Lower Tana. Lower has been an area which is considered a hotspot when it comes to research, because the community is not really very supportive of the researchers. But we've managed to actually be on the ground and continue monitoring the species there. In terms of documenting the biodiversity of this country, I think we also ranked highly, having actually done the first work on biodiversity inventory in the Chulu Hills, where we have actually raised the profile of that particular biodiversity hotspot. As a result, actually, we've had Chulu being gazetted as a water catchment area and also an area of biodiversity importance. In terms of the work we are doing in Matthews Ranch, we've actually been working closely with the community, and now we have actually a research site, and we are in the process of now moving in to develop a field site, having been allocated a portion of land by the local community to develop a field site. Another major breakthrough is the complete primate census in the Lower Tana River, which we are doing in collaboration with the Kenya Wildlife Service. And it's actually one which is coming after 20 years of doing a similar exercise, which IPR also led that kind of exercise in 1998 to 2000. Our biodiversity work in Chulu, which had very interesting findings, has led to gazettement of Chulu as one of the water towers in the country. Also in the same area, our work has resulted formation of the community forest associations in the Kibwezi forest, which later on ended up to being leased to David Shentrick, and now it's a very well protected area, also as a core water catchment area in the south and the coastal region. Turning back to Tana, we've actually had a major impact in trying to turn the attitudes of the local people for conservation. Going to Laikipia, where we've been actually undertaking our surveys on issues on climate change, how it has impacted on mammal diversity and zoonotic infections, we've also had major stakeholder workshops where we have educated the key players on the ground or people who have invested in ranches on the key impacts of climate change on zoonotic infections and how that is impacting on climate change. Coming back to our project in Kipipiri, where we've relocated some conflict-causing groups of colobus monkey to Karura Forest, we've contributed actually in helping the local farmers in mitigating the problem of crop raiding by these monkeys. And by bringing the monkeys into Karura, actually we've increased the aesthetic value of the people in the city. When they visit Karura, they can actually see colobus monkey, which is a new species there, and that actually is good for their social well-being.
We have a program called Animal Sciences, and this program is actually a resource center for animals. They deal with the capturing of the non-human primates and breeding, and therefore they form a resource for scientists. Every time researchers need to take animals for research, they have to go to this department to be able to obtain the research animals.
We have three sections within the department. We've got the primate medicine and surgery, and then we've got the animal husbandry and veterinary care. Also, we do have the pathology and diagnostics sections. So those three sections comprise the Animal Sciences Department of the Institute of Primate Research. And individually, there can be programs. There are programs which are run within the sections by individual researchers. On the side of the primate medicine and surgery, what we do ideally is to support the researchers in all their activities. We do handle the animals for them. We provide health care for the animals. And should they need any manipulations, like collecting blood samples, even doing surgeries, we can do that too on their behalf. On pathology and diagnostics sections, we do postmortems, and we're able to process tissue samples, blood samples for them, and provide them with data which can help them in their experiments. In case an animal dies or they need a necropsy, we do the postmortems and we do all the follow-ups on their cases. For the primate or the colony, what we do is provide husbandry to the animals. In husbandry, it involves daily feeding, watering, cleaning of the cages. Also, we do have an enrichment program where animals are provided a conducive or healthy environment so that they can exercise their full potential and perform any other entertainment which can make them relax to reduce stress in their cages. On the side of research programs within the department, we've got a strong base on endometriosis research. We've got laparoscopy equipment, which is very critical in doing our endometriosis work. Also, we are able also to do research to find biomarkers. Biomarkers are essentially products we can find in the body, maybe body fluids, saliva, blood, urine, to see if a patient has endometriosis. That is one of the most difficult disease to diagnose because you need to do a laparoscopy to find if the lesions are within the abdomen. Another program which we've been building up is papilloma virus, which has been discovered within our baboons. It was an incidental discovery. We found that baboons also can develop changes on the cervix which are almost similar to women, causing even to the extent of CIN3, which is towards a cervical cancer type of lesion. Another program is we are able to induce pelvic inflammatory disease in the baboon using chlamydia, sexual transmitted disease, and using that model, we've been also trying to find treatment and intervention to treat this condition. Another area this department has been working on with assistance of our researchers is contraceptions. We just completed a baboon contraception study where we are able to permanently occlude the fallopian tube so that we can get permanent contraception in the baboon. Hopefully this one can be done at clinical trials in women so that those who are finished giving birth, they can permanently close the fallopian tubes and stop getting children. Another program, we test herbal products. We are trying to find if they are effective in diabetes. We are able to induce diabetes in the mice and then testing herbal products to find if we can treat diabetes. And another upcoming program also is antibiotic microbe resistance. We are proud of a breeding program where we are trying to breed our own primates for research. The modern trend is for now to use captive bred animals for research, not wild caught. And of recent, we've got about 98 non-human primates which are colony bred, and we continue with that program on a daily basis. We believe the department has had some findings which have impacted on our society. A good example is the uterus transplant, which was done on women in Sweden. We did a lot of experimental work on the baboon to see if we can transplant the uterus, and it was successful in the baboon before it went to clinical trials in women, where the first child was born using a transplanted uterus, and the IPR is proud to have participated in that program.
We have a department of non-communicable diseases that deals with lifestyle diseases such as diabetes, stroke, heart diseases, and these are diseases that are emerging. We have also focused on cancer, which is actually more or less a lifestyle disease. So this department is key. We feel is very key to this institution and to the nation.
I would want to introduce NCDs as diseases that are not transmissible between individuals. They are diseases that arise from aberrant metabolic, that is the body's working system. They are diseases arising from the brain and the nervous system, and they are also diseases arising from cardiovascular system. In as much as they're not diseases that are transmissible, we have traditionally looked at non-communicable diseases as individuals in terms of research. However, it's my belief that NCDs sometimes have an etiology or a beginning in transmissible diseases or infectious diseases, for which reason I still do get convinced that a confluence between the NCDs and infectious diseases ought to be understood through integrative research programs that involve both infectious diseases and, for our case here, also the reproductive health and biology programs. NCDs basically include such diseases, as I've mentioned from the etiological position, diseases such as cancer, diseases such as stroke, diseases such as movement, diseases such as diabetes, and this is what we've been researching on. And so the programs that are running currently in NCDs includes movement neuroscience, and we have managed to do a few animal models that addressed issues of movement to help stroke survivors, and this has gone on to create wearables that help survivors of stroke to be able to manage their lives. The other things that we've managed to do when it comes to the neuro include Alzheimer's or neurodegenerative diseases. So Alzheimer's and Parkinsonian, but more importantly, we've done more Alzheimer's with an animal model to boot. We have done good research on sleep genomics and have ended up with a whole atlas, a genomic atlas of the body, from the brain to the peripheral nervous system. That has become most useful and is the most cited and was published in Science, second to Nature, Science Journal. We have done a lot of neurodegenerative diseases, and as I mentioned earlier, we've done Alzheimer's, and we've had an animal model that is yet to be published, but we've used that animal model to test drugs that enhance memory, edavoron, and that is still a research program that is ongoing. We did, as a major milestone, a program that involved probing the reticular formation, which is an alternative to the motor area of the brain. And this has resulted in wearables that have helped stroke survivors be able to move and perform basic tasks. Majorly, the whole idea of doing research is to translate that into some impact to the community. And to that end, I think the one thing that we've done this far, we have understood sleep and the genes that are upregulated and downregulated during sleep, and therefore coined the importance of sleep to normal body function and good health. Since NCDs are arising from the way we pursue life, it is better to be healthy through exercise, for example, than to manage an NCD.
More recently, because of the COVID pandemic, we joined the war in fighting the COVID pandemic, and we established a new program. And we have a whole center which is called COVID-19 Research and Testing Center. And in this center, we test various groups of people just to contribute to the national data. We test the patients. We test those ones who are suspected to have COVID. But also we have contributed in testing the national teams for sports and all the athletics and major events for Olympics, for example. Apart from that, we have archived samples for research, and we are contributing towards vaccine development. All these samples we have are for sequencing and also building libraries for the purpose of vaccine development.
Before the pandemic came, my lab was basically conducting various disease programs. And one of the basically that we are running is the USAID supported grant called the Predict for emerging pandemic threats, which basically was looking at the wildlife surveillance at the interface where we have the high risk. And this is where we have the wildlife, livestock and human interacting, and potentially there is maybe a spillage of either exposure or the potential maybe of spread of the disease. And so it's during that in that program that we are doing, and the COVID that we are looking at different coronaviruses families, that when COVID came, we were able basically to convert ourselves to the response. So during the COVID and the data that we have collected through the center, because the center is right now not only doing the testing, but also doing research on the COVID. So currently we have different kind of programs that we're basically running at the COVID through the metadata that we've basically been able to collect from the numbers that we've been able to test. We're basically looking at different kind of areas, and one of the areas basically how the pandemic waves or the corona waves have been in the country, and basically using our metadata from the lab. So we are trying to see whether we can be able to associate the waves with the clinical signs, because we have seen from the COVID data that different clinical signs have been basically been able to get some different kind of association between the wave and the clinical signs that the patient or the individual that the basically testing they are showing. So we are one of the research areas we're trying to see whether can we use that one instead of going to the deeper sequencing where we can be able to associate the wave and the clinical signs, and also whether we can be able to associate the clinical signs and the variant, given that different variants are showing different pathophysiology or basically the pathology, and we would want basically to use that one a simple way of detection and basically diagnosis, where you can use basically the variant, the clinical signs associated that with the variant, and be able to respond in the management. So it becomes easier rather than exporting the samples for sequencing and waiting for that long time to be able to do that. So from the data that we've been able to collect, there are different kind of areas that we are researching on to see whether there is an association that you can be able to advise the the hospitals and the management, the people managing the cases, to be able to find a way that we could associate that one in the pathophysiology. So that's one of the things that we are looking at. The other thing is that from the sample that we basically the individuals that we've been able to test, we are doing what we call deep sequencing, where we are trying to basically understand the COVID, the kind of the strains that we have locally here, and try to interrogate their sequences. And from that information that when we sequence and through the bioinformatics analysis, we'll be able basically to understand whether even the current vaccines that are basically being administered globally or nationally here in the country, whether they are going to be effective, and whether we can be able to say the kind of the variant that you are having here, is the vaccine going to be effective or not, or what kind of efficacy is going to basically show. So that's one of the things that basically the in-soil primate research is basically using. And not only that, because we are Primate Research Institute, we have the animal models. And one of the other areas that we're trying to do is to see whether we can have a simple way of medication using our own traditional knowledge and our herbs, because one of the mandates for the National Museum is basically on collection and utilization of the indigenous knowledge. And that one comes from basically the natural products that we have. So we are trying to see whether we have potential herbs from the communities that before have been utilized, and we have already some information that they could be able maybe to either help reduce the clinical signs or basically be able to protect one against the COVID. And we're using that, we're using the animal model. So we basically be challenging the animals and then using the same natural product to see how effective they are, and whether we could be able to transform that one to basically locally available medication. Because currently that you have seen from the COVID, we have what we have called kind of countries restricting the export of their product. Most of the product or medical therapeutics have been coming from India. And when COVID came, basically most of the countries have basically restricted the export of medical equipments or drugs. And so we have to find a local solution on how basically we can be able to be self-sustainable using our own available remedies. And one of them is basically to try and see how best we could be able to mine the local available knowledge that has been there over years and ages, and that the community have been utilizing. And given that we have that resource of the animal models in our society or in our institute here, I think it would be best to basically see how best we could be able to work with the animal model and be able to come with a remedy for their countries, so that we can be able to use it not only here, also in the region here to mitigate the current pandemic. IPR is basically very strategical position to respond to or to contribute to the public health. And the best way to contribute that one is to link basically, because humans do not live in isolation. We live together with the environment and also the animals. And the best to do that is to basically to ensure that the environment we are living in and the animals are healthy. If the two are not healthy, the human also will not be healthy. And so that one calls for a One Health approach to be able to respond to this kind of outbreak or pandemics. And so IPR, given that is a primate research center, and we know that majority of the previous outbreak or pandemic have basically originated from the primates and other potential reservoirs like the rodents and the bats. So it gives the platform for IPR to basically work as a One Health kind of research center. And it's through what basically been doing and the establishment of the center of the testing, IPR COVID testing and research center, that we have been able to develop both national and global international partners. And one of the key things that we are trying to do is to basically establish a One Health Institute or center here that could be able not only respond to what's happening nationally, but regionally. So what we've been trying to do is that we be able to basically be able to go out there using the One Health approach and be able to identify or detect both known and unknown pathogens, use that one to basically model and action that one, giving the government the warning and the region potential maybe what might be happening out there, and be able to respond to future pandemics if they were to happen. And so IPR, I find it to be strategically positioned for that, and I think we have this opportunity to utilize given what we have seen from the pandemic.
We have also a big program on snakebite research, and this program is focused on educating the community on how to deal with snake bites, but in the long run is focused on developing antivenom to deal with the issues of treatments of snake bite in Kenya and in the region as a whole.
The research activities under KSRIC fall under 3 thematic areas. This include 1, preclinical testing, venom and antivenom research unit. Under this unit, we characterize venoms of medical importance in Kenya and East Africa. We also research on new therapies to treat snake bites. The second unit is a herpetarium housing snakes of medical importance in Kenya and East Africa. Thirdly, KSRIC hosts a clinical and public health research unit that conducts research on the prevention, control, diagnosis, and management of snake bites. The major achievements for KSRIC since its inception include playing a very vital role in the WHO acknowledging snake bites as a neglected tropical disease in 2017. Secondly, we've secured funding to construct a state-of-the-art building that houses a herpetarium, research laboratories, and offices for scientists. Thirdly, we've established clinical and public health collaborations with the Ministry of Health, county governments, and other relevant stakeholders to try and reduce the burden of snake bites. Following on this, we run a motorcycle ambulance in Kitui that rapidly transports snakebite victims to the nearest health facilities for the urgent care that is needed. KSRIC has also offered an opportunity for young Kenyan scientists to progress their careers and provide a dedicated pool of scientists in snakebites. The overall impact of KSRIC will be to save lives and limbs through provision of antivenoms that are affordable and effective to our Kenyan people. KSRIC is a first-of-its-kind facility dedicated to snakebite research and intervention in sub-Saharan Africa.
We envisage that we will have a production unit at the Institute of Primate Research that will be producing antivenom that can be used locally and also internationally. But also, we hope as we are moving, we shall also develop a quality control unit to be checking all antivenoms that come to this country, whether they are working or not, before they are approved for use. We focus on issues of innovation, and this institution, we have produced products that are actually commercializable and they are already in the market.
This is a lubricating gel that is used to address the issue of dryness among women. And women can suffer dryness for many reasons. Being on certain stage of the cycle, using certain contraceptives, having reached menopause, using anti-cancer drugs. In fact, some women, when they're on anti-cancer drugs, they get so dry that walking becomes a problem. In the hospitals, the product is used during deliveries, and also when you're doing vaginal examination, like you want to do pap smear for the cancer test. And for men, it is used when you are checking the status or how healthy prostate is. So this product is in the market, and it has been approved by all the regulatory authorities in Kenya. The second product that is also in the market is this one called Muscan. This is a ultrasonic gel for ultrasound. In other words, you want to monitor the development of the baby in the womb. You smear it on the tummy, and then that allows you to use the ultrasound machine. Now, these two products are therefore geared towards improving sexual, reproductive, maternal, and child health. And they half the cost of the competing products. So they're basically contributing to a reduction in the healthcare in our country. Now, the third product, which is still undergoing tests, is a product that we are developing to prevent HIV infection and pregnancy. So this is basically a strategy that we are going to use to empower women so that they can have something to protect themselves against HIV and contraception or pregnancy without consent from the man. That one is still undergoing test, and we have already completed preclinical trials in the monkeys, and we'll be looking for money now to do the human clinical trials before we can commercialize. Currently, there is no such a product in the market, and this is the only African developed product of that nature. If you're not self-sufficient in terms of your production, not only in medicine, but also in other products, a time can come when you actually cannot be able to access products from outside your country.
We have increased the research funding for this institution. From the few research grants we used to have, about 20, now we have more than 50 research grants. That means the level of funding for the institution has actually increased. In terms of international and local visibility, many can attest that the Institute of Primate Research now is being featured in major media as an institution that is contributing to the national priority areas. But also internationally, the Institute of Primate Research is appearing on international newspapers, for example, at the World Academy of Science newsletters and other newsletters, because of the contribution that this institution has contributed. We have the phage biology program that is aimed at using bacteriophages as alternative to antibiotics. We all know that most microbes or most bacteria are undergoing resistance to the antibiotics that we have. But now we have come up with a new way that and become part of the international consortium that is finding alternatives for dealing with antimicrobial resistance. And we are using bacteriophages, and we have a very active program. We are looking forward to have other programs like the programs on cancer. We have already started. We have screened our animals. We know that they have cervical cancer. And now we are at experimental stages looking at these animals so that we are able to induce the disease. And as we know, cancer is a big pandemic. So once we have this model, we will use it for the purpose of testing new regimens.
We partner with a wide range of institutions. Let me start with the Kenya Medical Research Institute, which we partner with in a number of areas, including COVID-19 testing and research. We also strongly partner with the Ministry of Health, the Neglected Tropical Diseases Unit, and Zoonotic Diseases Unit. This is mainly on issues of snakebite disease and also on issues of One Health, zoonotic and emerging infections that involve livestock, wildlife, and humans, which is an area that the institution is strong in and is expanding in. We also partner with our regulator, the National Commission for Science, Technology and Innovation, NACOSTI, where they have registered as a national research facility, and we are also a member of the National Bioethics Committee, and also part of a new platform which is led by NACOSTI, which is Synthetic Biology Biofoundry, which aims to develop synthetic biology as the next frontier for industrial revolution through bioeconomy. We also partner with other research institutions like International Livestock Research Institute, KALRO, universities, especially universities of Nairobi, Pwani, Masinde Muliro, Mount Kenya, Kisii University, and lately Machakos University. We also partner with donor agencies that have supported our work. I started with our national agency, which is the National Research Fund, that has really supported our work every time we have projects that are funded by the National Research Fund. And we also have other major donors like the United States Aid for International Development, the British Aid for International Development, the World Health Organization, the Wellcome Trust, and many other international foundations in the US and Europe. As an institution, since our inception, we have not had a case where donors' funds have been diverted and have not been used for the intended source. And we intend to keep to that standard, and this is supported by our accreditation in the Good Financial Management Program, making us the first research institute in Africa to be accredited in that program, where we have received the bronze, and we are in the tail end of receiving the silver accreditation. And this will be important in ensuring that we have the necessary procedures for grant management in the institute. We also, as an institute, have contributed to the development of the National Laboratory Animal Science Guidelines that guide on how to use animals in research, maintained under laboratory conditions, so that they meet international requirements. We also have committees that ensure that welfare and ethics are very well taken care of when undertaking research using animals. This includes the Animal Care and Use Committee that ensures that the welfare and living conditions of the animals are to international standards, and the Institutional Ethics Research Review Committee, which ensures that research undertaken in animals meets the expected ethical considerations. We also have put in place an international advisory board that has been advising the institution on how to ensure that the animal facility, the animal work, and the collaborations in those areas meet international standards. I would also want to acknowledge and appreciate that the Institute has managed to obtain AAA-LAC accreditation. And AAA-LAC is an international agency that accredits world-class animal facilities, making the institution only the second in Africa to have an animal facility that is of the world-class status. We have also been designated the Center of Excellence by ANDI, which is the African Network for Drug and Diseases, and thus making us a Center of Excellence in preclinical research. We also have developed a big pool of collaborators that we work with, and these have enabled us to undertake our research. These are both the research collaborators and donors, including, just to name a few, the World Health Organization, the United States Aid for International Development, the British Aid for the International Development, and many other organizations. Also, local collaborations with the research institutions that we have developed that come in strongly. As an institution, we have expanded infrastructure. We have recently developed a new resource training center, and also put up new animal buildings, which we call Tumbili House, Nyani House, and we are currently expanding the baboon breeding cages so that we can produce enough colony bred animals for research. We have managed to get accreditation as a research institute from National Commission for Science, Technology and Innovation, recognizing us as a national research institute. We have also developed a training program where we receive internships and attachments that enable training of young Kenyans who contribute towards health research in the country.
We have programs like the summer programs for the international students who come here. We have programs like Primatological Field School, where we have students coming from all over here to learn on issues of primatology. We have short-term programs on molecular biology and biotechnology that we normally carry out here. We have programs on veterinary aspects and animal husbandry. And also general lab work on issues of immunology, on issues of microbiology. All these programs are within the Institute of Primate Research. So all students who are interested in attachments, in internships, the Institute of Primate Research is a good place for you to start your career. And those ones who have already developed their career, the Institute of Primate Research is a good place where you can do your research, and also you can advance your career.
Way back in 1987, I joined the institution. The director then, Dr. Mohamed Isakia, came for me at the University of Nairobi and asked me if I could join him. I accepted and I joined him. I was his research assistant, and we were doing basically reproductive health problems, isolating, purifying sperm proteins to see if we could target or if we could identify some of these proteins which could be used for immunocontraception. After joining the Institute of Primate Research, I was sponsored abroad to do my master's, which I finished. I did my Master of Philosophy. I later on did the PhD in the same university. And all this was supported by the institution through World Health Organization. My family never paid anything. They even didn't know what I was studying that far. And I decided to come back and join the institution so that I could also give back. They gave me something and I decided to give back. And I have not looked back since I came into this institution because of the massive support that I got from it. And I'm also giving whatever I'm being told to do, I do it without looking back.
Going forward, we are looking at a scenario whereby we will start a biotechnology center or a production unit that will be producing biopharmaceuticals and also manufacture drugs locally, because we have enough land in this place. We have goodwill, we have capability, and with the support of the government, we are confident that this will come to pass, so that once we do our research from the lab, we move to the animals, we move to human, and then we do production of these biopharmaceuticals locally. So this is the future of this institution, and the way I see it is that the Institute of Primate Research will become a great institution and will become a destination of all researchers and all innovators, both in this country and abroad.
The Institute of Primate Research is a critical player in the health research sector of this country, and we require the necessary collaborations and partnerships and support to overcome our challenges, and we also are ready to be tried and tested like we have been in the COVID-19 center, so that we can play our greater role in society.